LiveView and JavaScript, a guide to achieving synergy. I'm Michal.
I'm Hamza.
And we work at the company called Andjaro.
Yeah, so Andjaro is a software replacement as a service, which means that whenever someone is missing at work, we will provide the managers of this organization with a solution to find a quick replacement that matches the skill set that is needed. And for that, we use LiveView.
Yeah, so let's talk about LiveView. What? LiveView, the smashing hit of the Elixir web community. It allows you to create rich internet applications without writing any custom JavaScript. That's great, huh? Woohoo! Yay! That's what they say on Hacker News. And actually, that's also right. But does it mean you should basically just throw all your JavaScript away? Yes? Who says yes? Yeah, 2 people, yes. Well, considering the title of this talk, we will try to tell you, not really, but to explain ourselves, let's first consider what is really the main benefit that LiveView brings to your projects. So we think it's this two-way binding between the state on the server side and the front end. Whenever something changes in the state out there in the server, it automatically gets reflected in the web browser. And you don't need to create any GraphQL, REST, or any other API in between. So that's really great, especially if you're a full-stack developer. That brings a boost to your productivity. However, in many cases, JavaScript, some form of JavaScript, is still needed, because in many cases, you do want to have state also on the client side. You don't want to do server round trips for everything that happens on the website. You may have some tabs components, maybe a custom calendar, or maybe a modal. You could do a round trip for that. But if your user lives on another continent, the latency would be very noticeable. So that's not always the best way to do it. So JavaScript is kind of there to stay. And actually, it doesn't have any conflict with LiveView. We can bring both technologies together. And in this talk, we will explore how to do it. So these are 4 shades of mixing Elixir and JavaScript in a single LiveView project. We'll start from commands. Maybe here it doesn't look very purple, but on our screens, this color is purple. You can trust us. And actually, this means, because purple is the color of Elixir, that commands, although executed in the browser, this is a JavaScript behavior, they're encoded with Elixir code. And it belongs commands, JS commands, they belong to the API given to us by Phoenix LiveView. We will continue looking at what LiveView provides us when looking at hooks. The difference here, we do implement them with JavaScript. We will then review AlpineJS, a JavaScript library with a very easy integration with Phoenix LiveView, and we will finish with the most grayish here, VueJS. So this will serve as an example for a full-blown JavaScript framework. It could as well be React or Svelte. Whatever we will say applies to any of those technologies. So I give stage to Hamza to start from commands.
So hello again, everyone. I think you will like me a bit more because I will be on the purple side of this talk. So let's talk about commands. So commands basically are part of the LiveView API. It means that they support a variety of utility functions. For example, you could add or remove classes, or set or unset attributes, handle animation, or even fire custom events if you wish. And what is really magic behind this is that there is no JavaScript. You don't write any JavaScript. It's only Elixir. And what's better than an example to show you that? So let us dive right in. So here we have this piece of code. It's pretty basic. We just alias our module, then we define our hide modal function. We directly manipulate the G struct, and as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. We are just saying hide modal content, and then we apply this in our template. And that's it. That's all we need to do to hide this modal. So let's see a little bit on the screen how it shows. So we have this very beautiful modal. I'm proud of it. We have the X button. We click on it, and it disappears. So for this, the most important part here is this hide modal function. So let's zoom a little bit inside and see what really happens in reality. So we have this beautiful string, really beautiful. Let's reuse a little bit of the magic we used before to see what really it looks like. And this is what really happens. So LiveView will translate this function call to this structure you see here. So basically, since we called the hide function 2 times, we have two arrays with hide. So basically, you are saying hide this element within this time to this target. And in here, I didn't apply any transitions to keep the talk a little bit lighter. But you could as well use fancy stuff like transition or any of that if you wish. So what really happened here is that if we resume everything we just presented right now, we have the user clicked on a UI element on the screen. So when he clicked, this modal disappeared. All this on the client side, so there is no trip to the server. And we didn't write a single piece of JavaScript code, no line of JavaScript. So yes, LiveView JS is really great. I mean, come on, there is no JS involved, guys. We're in a Beam talk. So in here, we showed you an example to hide a modal, but you could as well show a modal or toggle elements. I mean, it's the same thing. And also, as I said in the beginning, we could add classes or remove classes, and the same thing with the attributes. And finally, we could handle transitions for animations and anything like that. And also, if we want to dispatch our defined events in JavaScript or our own if we wish to define them. So I mean, this is really quite a lot. I mean, it covers a lot of basic cases for all you need in the UI side. However, as all of us are developers and all of us know, we always search for the little things, so we need more. And if we need more, you don't need to worry because we have more. We have the hooks. And let's directly start talking about hooks. So the hooks gives us the possibility, in this case, to implement a number of lifecycle callbacks. So for example, whenever an element is mounted by the LiveView or destroyed, we could implement this callback and do our own custom actions if you want. And again, what's better than an example? So let's just directly take one. In this case, I will take a very nice gist done by Michael Crum, who is a Phoenix core developer. It's basically an integration of Flash Picker library, which is a JavaScript library for date picker, which is a case you normally use very often in a web page. And without further ado, let us look exactly at how it shows in the screen. So in here, you see we have this calendar, which is nicer than the one we have in the browser. And also, it will be the same in all browsers, even Internet Explorer. And as you can see, we select the date changes, everything is cool. So now let's see exactly how this happened in the code. Basically here, we have our template. In the template, we will define this attribute, which is Phoenix hook. We will point it to a picker hook object, which will be a JavaScript object. And the second most important part in here is this Phoenix update ignore. So what this really means is that we are telling LiveView, please ignore this part, which means that whenever LiveView the server, for example, pushes updates, LiveView will not handle this part. It will be handled by the picker hook separately. So basically, we are isolating this part from the rest of the LiveView. And that's it. That's all we need in our template. So then the next step, logically, would be to look at what is this picker hook object in reality. And as you can see, this is the source code for this Flash picker hook, this picker hook object. And let's just go line by line. So basically, we start by importing our object. Then we define, by importing the library, sorry. Then we define our object, we export it to be able to use it. And then we directly start implementing our callbacks. So basically, what we say is that whenever this div is mounted, we initialize a flat picker object in this case. And also, when it is destroyed, we also destroy the object. So that's it. That's all the code that was needed for this demo that I showed you before. There are, of course, other possibilities. In this case, we showed like when it is mounted or destroyed. But the API offers us a lot of other possibilities, as you can see on the screen. For example, we could do a little UI that shows whenever the connection is lost or reconnected, etc., while using disconnected and reconnected callbacks. And another thing is that directly from the hooks, you can access elements and you can push or receive events. And this part will be important in the later parts of this presentation. And you could also handle uploads if you wish. So it's powerful, that's for sure. I mean, with what we said about commands and hooks, we could do really a lot of things. However, if we want to be niche picky and go to edge cases, in this case, if you need to apply your own client-side DOM manipulations, you can't really do it with commands or hooks. I mean, it's a little bit complicated. But please don't worry, we have a solution. And I will let Michal show you how we can achieve that with AlpineJS.
OK, so far, so good. Commands were useful for simple transitions, showing something, hiding something, and so on. Hooks allowed us to bring in the external JavaScript library. But what if you want to implement your own small client-only widget and manipulate DOM there? AlpineJS could be a solution, because it allows you to easily do two-way binding on the client. And what do we mean by that? Whenever you want to manipulate DOM, you have basically two ways. The first way is to do it imperatively, and the second way to do it declaratively. So that's the imperative way. We directly mutate the document object by invoking methods like createElement, insertBefore, and so on. There is an advantage to this. The advantage is we don't need to import any external libraries. So this is the behavior available to us and given by every web browser. But the disadvantage, as we know as functional programmers, is that this way of programming gets messy very quickly. We are mutating the state. What we are used to nowadays is this, the declarative way or two-way binding. Again, state on one side, the template on the other side that directly, dynamically reflects our state. And Alpine is not the only framework library that provides that. Every modern framework gives us this possibility. But what's special about Alpine in today's context is its very tight integration with LiveView. So we have state of AlpineJS on one side in the client. We have state of LiveView on the other side on the server. And they both can manipulate exactly the same DOM fragment, the same DOM area, without any conflict. So if you remember this Phoenix update ignore attribute that Hamza showed us, we needed to declare it when bringing in the flat picker library. Otherwise, LiveView diffing would mess up our flat picker. With AlpineJS, this attribute is not necessary. We can achieve that by bringing those 3 lines of code into our main app.js file. So this is enough to make this seamless integration possible. And this snippet comes from the official LiveView documentation. Alpine is the only library that has this kind of integration directly there in the LiveView documentation. And another advantage of Alpine is its very simple syntax, very simple API. So This is how we declare the state. In this case, it's just one field of Boolean type, open. And this is how we use it in a template. So this fragment of the website will be shown or hidden depending on the state of the open field. So it is simple. It is simple to write, simple to read, simple to understand, and that's a great advantage. However, it comes with some limitations. Firstly, if you want to build a full application and use AlpineJS, maybe you would like to take advantage of some ready component libraries. The choice of such libraries is quite limited comparing to mainstream technologies like VueJS or React. So that's one thing. But there is another important topic. Alpine comes with a security trade-off. So let's talk about content security policy. This is a layer of security implemented in modern web browsers to help you mitigate cross-site scripting attacks. Basically, you can use it and configure your web application in a way that web browser will be allowed to access and execute only certain JavaScript resources, and it will not be allowed to execute anything else. So if an attacker somehow succeeds in injecting some JavaScript code into your HTML, it will not be executed. But what happens when you bring AlpineJS to your project? Well, you need to allow AlpineJS to get executed, otherwise importing it wouldn't make sense. And then Alpine, on its own, will happily execute any JavaScript it encounters in the HTML. So content security policy doesn't work anymore. And to be fair, there is some limited effort on the AlpineJS team to address this issue, CSP, so content security policy in this case. But yeah, it's not the top priority for them. So browsing documentation and browsing the code repository, you can find the module AlpineJS/CSP. However, it's not published. You will not find it on NPM. And there is not much going on in this part of repository, so who knows what happens with it. When digging a little bit further, you can see this comment, for example. So it's like from the second top contributor to AlpineJS, they say they wouldn't use AlpineJS to build a banking solution. Yeah? It would never pass a pen test. So Alpine is rather seen as a solution to more simple problems. And if you have really high security standards, maybe that's not for you. But what's for you if you do have this? VueJS. Why VueJS here? Well, one reason it's if you like the syntax, the easy syntax of AlpineJS, you will also like the templating syntax of VueJS, because it was directly brought from VueJS to Alpine. There is a direct inspiration there. Apart from that, you have a really rich ecosystem of high quality, ready-to-use components. You can extract code into your own component in a single file with template, with logic in JavaScript. You can test it in isolation. So it's really it might be a good solution for more complex applications, and you have content security policy there. And how can we bring Vue.js into our LiveView project? One way, we can render it from a hook. So just like Hamza showed us the flat picker library, in the same way, actually, we can bring any JavaScript library, including Vue.js or React or whatever. So let's see how it looks like. First on a demo. So here on the screen, this whole screen is a one LiveView page. The top is a small embedded Vue.js app, this form. So everything that happens here is client only. There will be a select button, this slider, some text will be changing depending on the state of the slider, and everything client side. And later, the bottom of the page will fill, and this will all be handled by regular LiveView mechanism. So here we can select a breed of a dog. We choose how many pictures that we want to see, and we load those pictures. So let's see how is this achieved. First, this is a fragment of the Hicks template. This is the HTML element that will host the VueJS app. We achieve it via hook. So we have here a Phoenix hook, and we still Phoenix update ignore this part of HTML, just like we did with Flatpicker. And this is the source code of the hook, of the JavaScript hook. First, we import VueJS and our custom VueJS app. We define and export the hook, and we implement the callbacks, lifecycle callbacks. So when the hook is mounted, we create our VueJS app and mount it on the hosting element. And what's important here, we are in the hook, inside of the hook. So we can actually pass ourselves, so this field, into our VueJS app. And thanks to this, VueJS will have access to all the LiveView hooks API. So it will be able to communicate with the remote LiveView process without any API on the standard LiveView WebSocket. It will be able to upload files and so on. So this is our VueJS app. It's in the form of a single file format, which has a template part, which we don't care that much about right now, and it has the logic in this script part. And here we have the declaration of the props. In this case, it's just one prop, the hook. So this is how we receive the hook object on the VueJS part. And the setup function, which contains most of the logic. Here we have the declaration of the state. There are two fields that are references, so they are bound to the form controls, the breed for the breed selection, and number for the slider, and we have also a definition of all available breeds. And the load function is what gets executed when we click the load button. As we see, we have here access to our hook via props, so we can just push events to the server. How this event is handled on the server side? Well, with regular handle event. So those who have done some LiveView before know this mechanism, because there is nothing VueJS specific here. This is how we handle events sent from the client. In this case, we first fetch URLs of the dog images from an external API, and then we save them on a socket in a socket assigns. The assign is called dog images, and then inside of the Hicks template, those images are displayed in a normal LiveView way. So we just iterate and display an image for each URL. So here, all the regular LiveView magic works. So we have LiveView DOM diffing, sending only the necessary data over the wire via WebSocket and so on. So this is how we brought VueJS via hook. It's kind of easy, I would say, because hooks are the basic way of bringing JavaScript libraries. So, and because we did it from the hook, we had access to the hook. So that could seem like the best way to bring a VueJS app into LiveView. But it has one thing that maybe it would be good to improve. So let's see how it loads, and when we refresh, we see it. So there is a small delay between when we enter the page and when we really see the VueJS app loaded. Where does this delay come from? Let's review what happens here. First, the main JavaScript file, app.js, creates the live socket. So the WebSocket configured for the LiveView communication. Then the LiveView communication needs to be established between the JavaScript part of the LiveView and the server side of the LiveView. After this, the code of the hook is executed on the client and the VueJS app is created. So basically, this step number 2 is what is slowing us down. Can we get rid of it? Yes, we can. So we can also render VueJS directly from the app.js file. How would it look like? So app.js creates live socket and the VueJS app. Second step looks the same, but we don't worry about it anymore. And in the third step, there are different ways, but the easiest one is just expose the hook on the global window object, and in this way it will be accessible from everywhere. So this is our new Hicks template. There are different values for there is a different value for Phoenix hook, but the main difference is this new attribute, our own custom attribute, data view app. And this is the fragment of our app.js file. This time we import our custom VueJS app and the VueJS here in the main JavaScript file, not in the hook. We look for the element, the HTML element that wants to become a VueJS app. It's hard-coded for simplicity here. And then we create app, VueJS app, and mount it on this element. Our new hook is simpler right now. Basically, it exposes itself when it's mounted, and it nullifies itself when it's destroyed, so it's not leaking in the browser. And the only change in our load function inside of the VueJS app is this. So instead of accessing the hook via props, now we access it via the window global object. And apart from that, our small demo works exactly the same. It just loads faster. So we see a few refreshes. It loads instantly. Maybe there is a very small delay in some cases. But apart from that, it's instant, and it works exactly the same. Now, a quick question. Do you think we should always render Vue.js in this way, like from the main app.js file, or maybe sometimes, maybe from the hook? So, actually, sometimes we have to render it from the hook, because sometimes Vue.js has to be rendered dynamically. Let's imagine the element, the HTML element that wants to host the Vue.js app is not there at the beginning when we visit the page for the first time. It is rendered by LiveView. So in the case of our demo, let's imagine our dock pictures are not just dock pictures. Let's imagine we want them to become Vue.js apps on their own. So we will see a very simple Vue.js app for each of the pictures. It will just have some tooltip there, but it could be something else. Yeah. So the only difference here is that there is not much difference actually from the first from the first example that we showed. So we just have a Phoenix hook, and this item hook will render our custom Vue.js app. We have one custom attribute data prop URL. In this way, we will pass the URL for the particular dog image into the VueJS app. And basically that's it. So that's all we have. Could you, Hamza, please recap what we just talked about?
Yes. So basically, again, with the 4 shades, starting from purple. So basically, we talked about commands. So these are part of the LiveView, but from the Elixir side API. So the big advantage is you don't need to write any JavaScript code. Then we had the hooks, where you could directly attach yourself into the LiveView process and implement callbacks if you wish so. For the third part, it was more about AlpineJS, and as Michal has said, it comes with a very tight integration with the LiveView framework, and as explained in the documentation, it's very easy to be put in place. But again, there are some security trade-offs. And finally, we could go with a full-blown JavaScript framework. In this case, we showed you VueJS, but it could be React, Svelte, or anything in this flavor. And that's basically it. So thank you for listening, and please feel free if you have any questions.
Thank you for the talk. Any questions here? All right, for those, okay, we have one here. And for those on Hoover, you can ask questions on Hoover as well.
What is performance of this setup? Do you hear me now? Okay. What is performance of this setup?
What do you mean by performance? Like in the web browser? What,
in web browser, because I right now using React.
Yes.
I'm thinking about trying to use REScript, the new language.
Yes.
Yeah, but not much connecting it to actually. I don't connect it to the backend. It's like a front page. Yes. But since I've added Bootstrap, yes, performance is not so great.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about switching, also using different libraries like Gatsby.js. So what is, for example, do you know what would be, if I would use this kind of technologies, what would be performance? It's like probably faster than React framework, but...
Yeah, honestly, I'm not really so much into micro benchmarking. I think VueJS and React both like perform good enough, even LiveView. In some cases, if you do like the server round trip unnecessarily and your user lives far, then the perceived performance of the app will be poor. But if you bring things to the JavaScript side, I think most of the solutions will perform really well. I think VueJS, the latest, the number 3, is very performant. But I don't have numbers in my head, and also if you compare to what. But in general, I think it's a very performant. Yeah. So I don't think you would get like some performance issues just by bringing VueJS, especially if it's in the form of single file format that is precompiled before. Every component is there precompiled. Yeah.
Because performance is quite important for SEO, and is this setup good for enough for Google, especially?
Yes, I mean, depending really what you are building. If you are building a marketing website that needs to really have very high SEO score, maybe this website also doesn't need even LiveView and server side. Maybe it could be a statically built website. But if it's an application used by users, then you have different also questions that might be more important than SEO. So it's really, it's depending what you're building, what are your goals. But this what we present, like we don't go with fully VueJS. yes, or React on the front end communicating with the server via some API. No, it's always kind of sprinkling server rendered the page. So if you have server rendered page in general, they should be good for optimizing against SEO, and performance can be achieved really, high performance can be achieved, yeah, for those cases.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have one more question here. I have one question on Hoover. Let's do this one here. And I'm gonna ask the other one from Hoover.
Hey, thanks. One of the things I was wondering is, have you experimented with any patterns of passing data from LiveView into JavaScript components?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you're initializing a view component like
Yes.
that hook, would you JSON serialize something in the kind of
Yeah.
hook in the
Yes.
function call?
Yeah.
Is it between that and just getting the components and then talk separately to the database, but then you almost have sort of an extra request? So have you experimented with it, and do you have any good patterns that actually work well?
Yeah. Do you want to or me address? Okay. Ah, okay. Okay.
I can bring. There's only one mic.
Yes.
I run.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we did a little bit of experimentation on that. So one way we didn't have time to show it, but you can also get rid of this Phoenix update ignore also when having a VueJS app. In this case, you would need to implement more callbacks, like on before update, for example. And in this case, what we did, we used the reactive API from the VueJS, and in this way, it survives it's kind of it's externalized from the component itself, the state. And the state that we want to kind of communicate between LiveView and this VueJS JS app, this part of the state, would be like a JSON serialized into a string and passed as the new attribute, data something attribute. Yeah, that. But yeah, good. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Okay, we have one question from the Hoover app. I don't know if I got it right, but I'm just gonna read. So if I get it well, we can actually use Alpine or VueJS code and concept direct. I think it's connect directly, but concept directly in a LiveView app, or am I getting it wrong?
Yes, you are not. You are right. You are not getting it wrong. Yeah.
Okay, the person who asked you are right. Do I have more questions here? Okay, more questions here in the room? Not? Okay, I think. Oh, there's one. Almost.
Last one, case.
Give it one, give it two, give it three.
Yeah, I was playing with a LiveView to build an over-engineered, some sort of dashboard page, and I ended up with a huge model on the server side. So I started up to break it down, stuff like that. So, what pattern is there to use a huge view model with LiveView, or shouldn't I do that? Like, imagine a 400 by 400 table.
Yes.
Each of those has a smart cell with buttons and stuff inside that. So it doesn't seem to be working with one big LiveView.
Yeah.
I have to break it down to nested LiveViews.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know if there is a pattern there, so I could follow that instead of inventing the stuff.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we'll start. So one also clarification. My experience is in LiveView is basically in 2 projects, and I can only my experience is in the project I implemented. So I'm not a consultant working 10 years on LiveView. Also, it doesn't exist. So, for example, your use case, I didn't have to handle such a problem. No, I always have like a much smaller pages, and I didn't encounter the problem. So it's not that I can just answer from my memory and have a ready answer to you. Maybe even somebody from the public can answer it better. But in general, well, there are components. There are components. That's one way. Another way, maybe if you haven't looked into, you could look into some source codes for inspiration. For example, Live Dashboard might be something similar to what you described. If you haven't looked at it, then yeah, that could be one way. Maybe also in general, Livebook. The source code for Livebook is really big. Is a great resource to learn to find out how to nicely do a website. There is also LiveBeats, another application. So looking around those source codes could help you. From my side, yeah, maybe components, maybe LiveView components, maybe this way. Okay.
All right. Okay, I think we are done. Thank you a lot for the talk.
Thank you. In the code samples from this talk, they may be published on the repository, depending if anybody's interested. But so it will be there if you start it or watch. Thank you.